IVM.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. Well, what do we have here for you this Thursday? In this podcast week, I'm kind of getting a sense of feeling that we should perhaps figure out where we've reached. I mean, I was just listening to some of my earlier podcast episodes, and now we are nearly, closing to 90. Soon will be a century, and it's amazing as to, how much I've learned in this podcast. As I've traveled across various cities, taking my trusty mic, and you enduring peacocks and squirrels and various other noises as I make my diary entry of the day or the week or whatever it is. Thank you for all the love and the affection that you've showered upon me. And thank you for all the discussion and debate, especially on LinkedIn and Instagram, when you reached out to me and said how much you agree with me or how much you disagree with me on the latest podcast that I've got. Now, here's the interesting thing. I've always tried to come up with some thought or the other which has struck me, which is kind of relevant to the way in which life is unfolding at the moment. And one of the thoughts that certainly I wanted to share was something called Dunbar's number. I'm sure some of you might have heard of Dunbar's number. It's that magic number of 150 after which we tend to lose our sense of connect. So, for example, if you've got more than 150 Facebook friends or 150 Instagram followers or whatever, and I'm sure most of you do by now, it will be very difficult to maintain a genuine relationship with more than 150 people. So what does Dunbar's number actually say? Dunbar's number says that you can't have a meaningful relationship with more than 150 people in your life. Now, meaningful doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be family or romantic or anything of that sort. It could just be, be your employees or your bosses or, your clients or any person rather, who's significant enough to have some meaning in your life. It could be very well your housemate. It could very well be somebody whom you look up to, a mentor. You could meet that person once a year, but he or she is still extremely important for you. So you get Dunbar's number, right? So Dunbar's number becomes extremely important for two kinds of work professionals, in my view. First kind of work professional who gets impacted is, people who are in the field of marketing. The field of marketing is extremely important because the field of marketing makes us look at the way in which we respond to marketing campaigns and stimuli and the rest of it, as things progress. And for us, we need to understand, for us marketers, we need to understand, am I speaking to somebody who's primarily an individual right now that I'm speaking to, or am I speaking to somebody who's part of a group? Right? Am I talking to somebody who's going shopping alone on an e-commerce site, or who's going to the mall along with a couple of her friends and being judged for the dresses she's wearing and getting either approval or disapproval for? This is where Dunbar's number really comes into handy. Am I part of a tribe who's watching cricket in a stadium full of fans and full of enemy fans? Well, marketing will need to mend its messages based upon the number of people you are actually emotionally connected to at a particular point in time. It could be in your office. It could be, at an event, at a match, say, or it could be very well a social occasion. Sometimes you need to keep your real persona back at home and just don a office persona, isn't it? And actually belong to the tribe. So you could also make a lot of decisions which go against my brand, which is trying to market to you as an individual, as somebody who's a free-thinking individual, as they say. So marketing does get impacted by Dunbar's number. You know what the other thing that gets impacted by Dunbar's number is when you have to change your organizational structure. So when you're looking at when your startup, for example, gets beyond, let's say, 150 people, you probably need to restructure it in such a way that you have two business units or units which are lesser than 150 people. It becomes extremely important for any organization to keep restructuring in order for it to reflect Dunbar's number. If you want close working relationships and partnerships, and you want to retain that, that close bond that only comes when you're few in number, you have to be really strategic and intelligent and put that plan, that organizational plan, in a manner that creates that feeling. And it can be done because human minds are exactly the same. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I find it fascinating because Dunbar's number then allows us to understand the limits of the human mind and then how that human mind can actually be addressed for purposes such as employee morale or even marketing, or just perhaps even just looking at the way in which you look at maybe an educational institute. Yeah, Dunbar's number makes an impact there too. Now, Micah, where I used to learn as a student, 20 years back, 25 years back, actually, to be honest, 94 to 96. Interestingly, had only 42 people in our batch, clearly within Dunbar's number. But over a period of time, that number increased and increased and increased and increased. And it went beyond 150, I think, a few years back. And I could sense, you can sense a certain feeling of stronger bonds being replaced by weaker bonds. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something that maybe an institute's management needs to recognize, an institute's administration needs to recognize and address to keep the community feeling alive. Because beyond 150, it stops kind of being a community. It kind of becomes more of a network, right? Community and network. Really interesting, isn't it? So Dunbar's number, interesting number, guys, and something that is worth pondering on. It's something that has certainly shaped the way in which I communicate to people. If I'm communicating to a class which is beyond 150 people, I talk in a certain way. If I'm talking to just a few people, if I'm mentoring somebody, or if I'm coaching a few people at a time, clearly the way in which you're communicating depends upon Dunbar's number, isn't it? Just remember it the next time when you're making a speech, or the next time when you're making a TED talk, or the next time when you're addressing your boss one-on-one. Just remember, people behave differently in the presence of others, and the number of others also makes a difference. Dunbar's number, cheers to you then. I hope you like this diary entry of mine. Many more to come from where this came from. Follow me on Instagram and on LinkedIn as The Traveling Professor. And if you love podcasts like these, do go to ivmpodcast.com or just download the damn app. All right then. Until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, Niharika Pandey joined Cyrus this week on Cyrus Says. Niharika is the strategic partner manager for Instagram India. Great conversation about the plans for Instagram in India. Karanjit Kaur joined the guys at Uncle Please Sit. Another really interesting conversation about the patriarchy. On Advertising is Dead, old friend Suchita Salwan showed up. Suchita is the founder of LBB. Great conversation she had with Varun. Definitely do check that out as well. Tanvi Lad, who is a nationally ranked badminton player, was on the Habit Code with Ashton Doctor. Great conversation. I would highly, highly recommend that. The Football Football guys are back. They've been back for a few weeks, but definitely do check out their latest episode. Great, great conversation they had. On Aditi Surana's Absolutely Right, Manju Sara Rajan was the guest. And again, a great conversation was to be had over there. As always, great conversations all across the board. Check out some of the other stuff like Smile India and Know Your Kanun and All Things Policy. All of them had fresh episodes this week. But with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.